All right, today's topic is going to be Florida death metal. The Florida death metal bands in my collection that are not your most popular bands. I wrote them down to list the bands that we are not going over today. Angel Corpse, which was from Kansas City, they moved to Tampa, Florida. We're not going to talk about Atheist. We're not going to talk about Brutality, Cynic, Death, Deicide, Disincarnate, Massacre, Monstrosity, Morbid Angel, Nocturnus, Obituary, Resurrection, 6 Feet Under, or Solstice. Why? Because as a metal fan, death metal fans, you guys know Florida death metal. What I'm going to do is take you through some CDs that are from Florida that are just kind of like underrated. Acheron is a pretty popular band. They were from Tampa, Florida originally. I've got this Searing Distortion album, Those Who Have Risen by Acheron. That's a killer album. Some great guitar tone on that one. The Rites of the Black Mass is one of their older albums. So Tampa, Florida, Acheron. Next up, we've got a band called Apocalypse Command with their Damnation Sites of Invincible Abomination. This is a band from the guitarist of Angel Corpse named Paul Bickey. His guitar riffs were just shredding, and this Apocalypse Command is a pretty nice shreddy guitar album from Florida. Another band from Tampa is Apostasy. They're Accuser of Brethren. Lots of people don't know this one. It was a demo from, I think, 1991 or 93, around those years, and this is a reissue of that demo. It's very, very good. Another Paul Bickey project was Blasphemic Cruelty, and their 2 albums. Their Devil's Mayhem album is the one I recommend. It's their debut album, and what I really like about this is excellent guitar, and then check this out, female drums. But it's a really good band called Blasphemic Cruelty. The debut album is called Devil's Mayhem. It's a recommendation, Florida death metal. Next Florida death metal that's underknown is a band called Contorted. Their album Clinically Dead. This was members from the band Brutality, who after Brutality had split in the early days. 3 of the members had gone on and done this band Contorted. I have both of their albums. Their first album was called Edge of Darkness. So that's more Tampa, Florida death metal that maybe you didn't know. Next Tampa, Florida band is Diabolic, their Vengeance Ascending album, Subterranean Magnitude album, and their earlier album is called Supreme Evil. I'd recommend Supreme Evil from Diabolic for those who are into Florida death metal, particular Tampa, Florida sound. Diabolic, Supreme Evil. Next band, another Tampa, Florida, is from Dive Bomb Records, and it's called Epitaph Echoes Entombed. It's a demo anthology, 1991 to 92, of the band called Epitaph from Florida, and it's excellent. Excellent CD. Good job on this reissue from doing their demos. Really like this. Next band is not from Tampa, Florida. This band is from Mount Plymouth, which is near Orlando, which is where Death and Chuck Schuldiner was from. The band is totally underrated. It's called Equinox. Equinox from Florida is some excellent Florida death metal. As the Moon Swallows the Sun album, this killer album called Journey to Oblivion, highly recommended, and the earlier album is called Return to Mystery. Definitely underrated band. All 3 albums are good. I really like Journey to Oblivion. It's a great album from Florida. Next up we have a band called Eulogy, and this is the original edition of their Essence Dismal right here. So the first one was this record label. I'll show you the disc. Looks something like that. Excellent Florida death metal. And then their reissue, which has the Dismal demo. So Eulogy, pretty well known, I guess. This one is underrated. Not too many people know Impurity. Impurity was from Gainesville, which is just northwest of Orlando. And they have an album called Unearthly Affinity, Impurity. That's just kind of straightforward death thrash. It's good stuff though, it's definitely a good album. Next up from Brandon, Florida is Infernal. Brandon is the same place right near Tampa that Obituary is from, same town. Infernal, pretty cool album cover, and I guess the draw from this album is that it features Nasty Ronnie of Nasty Savage on vocals. Nasty Savage was the most popular band in Florida besides Savatage that really kind of sparked extreme metal in the Florida scene. So Infernal, right from Brandon, Florida. Next up, I've got an album called Inhuman Condition, Rat God. It's a brand new album. It's members from the band Massacre. Notice the resemblance of the similar logo there. This is a great album. I really enjoyed it. Only spun it once so far, and it's great. Next up, we've got a band from Cape Coral, which is down by Fort Myers, just south of Tampa, and the band is called Judica. The albums that I have here is Wild Rags Records, Beyond What the Eyes Can't See. Their quite rare EP called Awakened by the Stench of the Dead on Wild Rags Records. And this one is also rare, quite underground, Scenes of an Obscure Death from Judica, from Fort Myers. Next up, a band called Killing Addiction. Killing Addiction was from Osceola. It's between Gainesville and Orlando, so really close to where Death was in Orlando, Florida. Their debut album is called Omega Factor, and this is the original edition. Here's what the CD looks like on JL America. And then a more recent and an excellent album is Shores of Oblivion. I think Killing Addiction, this Shores of Oblivion, is quite underrated. This debut album is a little bit more well known. Next band from Florida is Lowbrow, Sex, Violence, Death, and Victims at Play. This band featured Alan West from Obituary. So the band is from the same town, obviously, as the rest of the Obituary crew, and both of them are good albums. Pretty heavy, kind of like 6 Feet Under. Of course, Alan West was in 6 Feet Under, Obituary. He's kind of like the main guitarist of that sound, and here's more of his material, more of his riffs. Lowbrow from Brandon, Florida. Next up, awesome underground gem. This band is from West Palm Beach, Miami area. Same place as like where Cynic was from. I think they were down south as well. Mendacity Imprisonment. This is just a freaking killer album. I got this from the guitar player of the band, and it's just an underrated gem. From Orlando, Florida, same place as Death, same area. I think Death was just a bit more in Altamonte Springs, but Nephobia from Orlando, Florida, their album Of Hell. This one is kind of difficult to get a hold of. This is the 1995 original edition, and I believe that it's been reissued. You can find a reissue of this album, but this is an excellent Florida death metal album. Paths of Possession features Corpse Grinder, George Fisher on vocals, and I neglected these two albums for a long time. I finally purchased them last year, and they're both great. I really enjoyed Promises in Blood and The End of the Hour by Paths of Possession. Good riffs, good production, excellent vocals. Definitely underrated Florida death metal right there. I've got another band called Sacrifier and their Symphonies. Kind of a gorgeous looking album art and such, but you know, another unknown Florida. I'm going to include also the band The Skeletal. It's a multinational band, but I'm including this in my Florida list because it features Cam Lee on vocals. He must have written some lyrics too because he spouts them really well. I really like the lyrics on this album from The Skeletal. This is a limited edition on Metal Inquisition. I think it's limited to 200 copies. And if you get a chance, pick up this album, The Skeletal, Florida death metal. And then we're going to conclude our Florida death metal with Worm for Everglade. This is a masterpiece death metal album. The band used to be sort of black metal in their early days, but now they've come around to grace us with this beautiful death metal from Florida. Worm for Everglade is a highly recommended album from Florida. There you have it. Bands that are from Florida that are not your classic bands, bands that you can check out if you just like that Florida in-your-face sort of tones. Most of these bands are from Tampa. There's only like 3 or 4 that were not from Tampa. So Tampa, Florida death metal rules. Let's check it out. See you next time.